Hi, my name is Douglas Vogt from the Dihole Foundation, and this is probably the second most important two videos I've ever done. The first being, of course, Series 4 explains what causes the Ice Age in polar reversals, why they happen immediately after each other. This one's a little different. This is going to be the first time I can say that I have figured out what side of the Earth is going to be facing the sun when it novas next time, and what side of the Earth is going to be facing, get the dust shell, and what side gets the instant ice age. I was going to put it first in one video, but it was going to run too long, and I'm trying to keep these things under 1 hour. So I'm going to explain what this is all about. This is part 5D. I'm going to cover the mythology showing which side of the Earth saw the last nova. And then finally, the one thing we know the sun does when it does nova, it gives off cosmic rays. And these cosmic rays are like atomic bullets, basically. And when they hit certain minerals, and even bone, petrified bone, they leave fission tracks. So this is what this is going to cover. And the reason is once you know for sure what side of the Earth faced the sun 12,068 years ago and saw the sun nova, you can then figure out what side's going to be hit or see the sun when it does nova. Part 5E, or the part 2 to this thing, we're going to cover the proof of the Earth's magnetic field, why I feel it's going to be happening soon, within 26 years, which side of the Earth will be seeing the sun, which side is going to see the dust shell, and the instant ice age. If you want to receive email notices of the videos we put out, or anything else, I don't think I send more than 1 out or 2 out a whole month. Sometimes it goes even longer. Send them to research or info or research at diholefoundation.com. If you want to make a contribution to the foundation, it would be through PayPal, research at diholefoundation.com. So I'm going to be covering stuff from chapter 8 here and chapter, I think 10, and also some stuff here, the basic theories from this. In fact, you can't figure any of this stuff out unless you come in through a information theory of existence. That's why no one before me had ever figured it out, because we're dealing with a clock cycle. We're going to also, in the first part, we're going to cover chapter 11 from my book Reality Revealed, which I did copyright in 1977. I researched it from 75 to 77, and I spent a lot of time in the UCLA stacks. Anyway, I've been studying this subject since '69. It comes out to 51 years. And I've seen dozens of theories on the Ice Age and polar reversals come and go, and some deserve to go. And I've seen how scientific theories have evolved and how some had started. And that's important to figure out when you're reading the new stuff, what makes sense, what information should have been cleaned up, or the scientists should have done a better job of researching. Anyway, I'm now 73 years old, and I'm hoping that my research will help people survive this thing. It really doesn't matter what religion you are, race you are, what part of the Earth you're on, or what political persuasion you are. This is going to affect everybody on the planet. And you have to understand the reason why academia and government came up with the idea of global warming is being caused by mankind is that they had to come with an alternate explanation of why the Earth will be getting warmer before the reversal, because really it's the sun that's going to be, its output is increasing across a broad spectrum. Anyway, we'll start in. Now, on my last book, God's Day of Judgment, I had calculated that the sun novaed over China, India. In fact, it was roughly 48 degrees longitude east. So this is the range in here where I think it was dead center. By the way, that's Hawaii. I got China, India, and we're going to cover the mythologies from these two because they were quite prolific. And they're quite good, too. So we're going to start in with their mythologies. This condition of excellence deteriorated and decayed until Su Zhaovin, the fire god, or fire the sun, and Fu Xia. Fu Xia is the Chinese Adam, for instance, arose and commanded their administration of the world, on which came a compliance with their methods. But the state of unity was lost. I've got all the references here in brackets. Some of these books, this goes book to 1891, some even earlier than that. They're not the only ones who say there was a previous, more advanced civilization or people. And the way they describe it in the Chinese stuff, it's almost as if they're describing a fifth-dimensional beings. You know, no sickness, everybody understood everybody else, and peace, tranquility, and whatever. And that's kind of what you get from fifth-dimensional beings. The wind, Zhuizan, represented the god of fire or the burning mirror. We believe this represents the sun. Fu Xia was a survivor who ruled China after the cataclysm. From the Chinese deluge legend, we hear of the mystical empress Nu Qua, royal lady of the West, the sun. Now, the reason why they say West is because previously the sun rose in the west and set in the east. In her kingdom, it is alleged that 3 rebels had conspired with demons or gods of water and fire to destroy the world, and a great flood came on. This is the Pacific Ocean. Part of this Pacific Ocean went that way. That's the source of the flood that they are referring to, as well as the Indians too. Then it goes on, caused the waters to retreat by making use of charred reeds, an allusion to basically burning trees and anything that was on the surface. You could understand why. The burning forest. The legend also talks about the sky fell down, which could also mean they saw the results of the dust shell. They did. In part 2, I'm going to show you the mechanism. It has to do with fluid mechanics of the dust shell, why they saw it and they got parts of this thing. From the Annals of Yahoo, who was alive when evidence of destruction was still present on the earth. Quote, at that time, the miracle is said to have happened that the sun, during a span of 10 days, did not set. I think it stopped only for about 7 to 8 hours. And I think when you're reading mythology, you have to understand they're 12,000 years old. Sometimes they screw up the story. They get things mishmashed. But you're looking for the main components. Basically that the Earth stops its rotation for a period of time. The forests were ignited, and the multitude of abominable vermin were brought forth. In the lifetime of Yahoo, the sun did not set for 10 full days, and the entire land was flooded. Well, you understand why it was flooded. The Pacific Ocean was rushing over them. An immense wave that reached the sky fell down on the land of China. The water was well up on the high mountains, and the foothills could not be seen at all. There's also a legend, I didn't repeat it here, but it's in Reality Revealed, that they were able to find seashells and other remains of sea animals, crustaceans, in the Gobi Desert. Destructive in their overthrow of the waters of the inundation, said the emperor. In their vast extent, they embraced the hills and overtop the great heights, threatening the heavens with their floods. Velikovsky. The philosopher Vin Zi gives us the following description of what happened during the last cataclysm. When the sky, hostile to living beings, wished to destroy them, it burned them. The sun and the moon lose their form and are eclipsed. The 5 planets leave their path. The 4 seasons encroach one upon another. Daylight is obscured. Glowing mountains collapse. Rivers are dried up. It thunders then in water. Hoarfrost falls in summer. That's the Ice Age later. The atmosphere is thick and human beings are choked. That's probably part of the dust shell coming around the backside of the earth, hitting them. The state perishes. All you government employees out there, keep note of that. The aspect and order of the sky are altered. The customs of the age are disturbed, thrown into disorder. All living beings harass one another. I can understand why. Taoist author Hu Han Tzi says that when the earth and the sun leave their path, a tremendous flood will cover the earth. Well, he'd say that because last time they got the flood. This time, the Americas get the flood. The reign of chaos tells us that in the beginning, the world was in darkness, and there was a great deal of smoke and clouds covering the earth after the age of chaos. The heavens and earth separated. Records had not yet been established or inscription writing invented. At first, even the rulers dwelt in caves and desert places, eating raw fish and drinking blood. Not too appetizing. Well, we have a couple of clues. People who did survived it in caves. And it again tells us the world was in darkness. And you'll see in some of the legends I'm going to present, one says it was dark for about 14 years. It's going to take the sun at least one sunspot maximum, 11.09 years, and maybe a couple of years after that, to form this matter shell around the center modulation point that will produce the light, the infrared heat we need to warm up. Otherwise, all you're going to see is really a tremendous source of ultraviolet light, and that's what we see with some of these stars that have nova just after they nova. You know, the light coming from them is very skewed to the ultraviolet. In China, a tremendous amount of significance has been attached to dragons. It is thought that when dragons fight, fireballs fall to the ground and a strong wind prevails in the heavens. When the dragon's egg hatch, lightning flashes, thunder billows, and darkness comes to the earth. That is mostly description of probably when this dust shell goes around the earth, what they're seeing up in the sky and what comes down on them. But again, we're going to cover that in 5E, part 2 of this thing. The lightning I also covered during a reversal, you're going to have a big spike of energy. I think it's mostly around the equator would be the worst part of it, but there'll be tremendous lightning all over the place. I just don't know how long. Japan, that's Japan over here. By the way, this is China for those who don't know. The legend of Itsuwagi, we could consider their idea of God. The legend tells us his sister, Isewanmi, the old sun. The legend tells us that associated with the old sun is fire, thunder, lightning, and earthquakes. Eventually, a new sun reappeared, and the earth is brought to life again. Again, the Japanese tell the same basic thing, everything that happened I've said before. The sun novas, burns everything on top of that surface that it sees. Everything there, all the foliage on this side of the earth that saw this thing go, burned, unless the ocean covered it. Ironically, the great floods, the flood that happens, saves the plant life, and maybe the insects too. But that saves the plant life. Hawaiian Islands. Hawaiian Islands is right there, that little speck. But what they have in the legend is really good. In the legend, a character within the legend, he snares the sun because it is traveling too fast. really opposite. It was slowing down. American Indian one said it was slowing down, and somebody lassoed it and got it to go faster. He uses a rope which his grandmother makes for him. Then he snares the sun. It stops in the sky. Again, that's one of the things it does. Low on the horizon. Well, if the sun's novaing over here, they're over here, that is low on the horizon. There's no mistake about it. So they saw this thing. Remember, the Earth was rotating, the sun rose in the west, so they saw it like in sunrise. This thing already blew. The Maui beast and the sun, until the sun agreed it will travel much slower across the sky. Well, it picked up speed, obviously after the reversal period itself. Another period, people who migrated from New Zealand to Hawaiian Islands say that one of their gods, Kahani, brought back the sun after the sun had vanished and the earth was dark for a period of time. Another legend tells us that disappearance of the sun and the oceans lowering in depth. All these things I've said and explained the mechanism why it happens. So in other words, these legends are telling us something very important, that it did really happen. That's it's important for all of us. You have to understand, if you came from the Hawaiian Islands or China or Europe, it's our ancestors really screaming from their graves of what happened to them. India, there's India right there. And this is again where I think this thing novaed. Like 12 noon, this is where it was. The Indian sage Makahondia, I'm going to be butchering Indian names, like I usually do. Forgive me, I'm doing the best I can. Was believed to be one of the survivors of the last cataclysm. Makahondia goes on to say that the world grows extremely sinful at the close of the last Kali Yuga, of the day of Brahma. The world of man become filled with sin and immorality. Take note, Hollywood. The earth is ravaged by fire, then the earth is swept by fire, and heavenly rains fall until the forests and the mountains are covered over by the rising flood. They got the Indian Ocean, but they got this ocean, the Pacific, rushing this way. It went that far, in other words. For 7 to 8 hours, Earth stopped its rotation. So figure, if you say, okay, it's going at 400 miles an hour, it's not going to go at 1,000 miles an hour. I can't imagine it. Because it has mass, gravity would hold it, elevation is going to slow it down. So I'm figuring, okay, 400 miles an hour. So over 7 or 8 hours, 400 miles, you got 3,000 miles are going to go, 2,000 or 3,000 miles. If I'm wrong, if the survivors of this next cataclysm, if I'm wrong, forgive me. The earth is ravaged by fire, then the earth swept by fire. Heavy rains fall until the forests and mountains are covered over by a rising flood. The whole universe is dark expanse of water. So I told you right off the bat, for a period of time, you don't see a sun, or it's ultraviolet light, or like, barely past sunset, where you have a little bit of light, but that's probably what it is. In other writings, Makahondia goes into greater detail of what happened during the destruction. After a drought lasting for many years, 7 blazing suns will appear, our sun novas, in the firmament, the sun novas. They will drink up all the waters. We can understand why. Then wind-driven fire will sweep over the earth. That has to do with when the dust shell hits one side, the other side, the atmosphere expands rapidly. That's basically Boyle's law. And so in that process, when the atmosphere is expanding rapidly, you're going to have very, very high winds. Okay, where was I? Consuming all things. Pertaining to the neither world, it will be destroyed. It will destroy what is there in a moment. It will burn up the universe after many colored and brilliant clouds will collect in the sky. That's probably from the dust shell when you're seeing it, and also part of the sun noving too. Looking like herds of elephants decked with wreaths of lightning. Suddenly they will burst asunder, and the rain will fall instantaneously for 12 years. Well, that may be sunset maximum is about 11 to 12 years, until the whole world with its mountains and forests is covered with water. The clouds will vanish. Then self-created Lord, the first cause of everything, will absorb the winds and go to sleep. Hindu book Bhagavad Gita Purana also tells us that the world is periodically devastated and changed both name and form. The surface of the earth dissolves and is later produced anew. All contradictions to truth pass away. That phrase I've seen also in other legends in South America and in Europe. It says, all of man's false gods pass away. If you've seen series 12, you'd understand what that means. In the book, same one, oh, sorry, different one. There is a good description of what the sun does at the end of a yuga, a world age. That one, the sun, bakes everything here by means of the days and nights and half moons and months and seasons and the year. And this, Agi, the fire, the sun, bakes what is baked by that one being the sun. A baker of the baked he is, said Bhagavad Vega of Agni, for he bakes what has been baked by that the sun. In the year, these amounted to 10,800. Notice it's 1,200 short of 12,000. He stopped at the 10,800. That's how many years, but you'll understand why in a second. In the third Brahma in the same Hindu book, now yonder burning the sun, doubtless is no other than death. And because he is death, therefore the creatures that are on this side of him die, but those that are on the other side of him are the gods, and they are therefore immortal. I wish. He didn't know, obviously, because he was on the sun side, that on the back side, on the other side, they got the dust shell. The principle of 12,000 years between world cycles does show up in the Brahmin literature in the Rig Versa. There are 12,000 verses in the writing. Each verse represents a year. The Hindu book Pranza Upsa, I can't pronounce that word, forget it. It is told that in the past the sun rose in the west and set in the east. Now, Advita, I can't forget it. The sun, when he rises, goes towards the east and thus receives the eastern spirits into his ways. From a Hindu book, Avatar, now you know where they got the name for the movie. We are given a good description of what the sun looked like when it novaed and how many hours it took for it to expand. By the power of God, there issued from the essence of Brahma a being shaped like a boar. Now, keep in mind the word boar. You can see it show up again. White and exceedingly small, the sun. This being, in the space of an hour, grew to the size of an elephant of the largest size and remained in the air. They saw the sun nova. Now, the shape is interesting. Like in one of my things in section 4, when I proved all stars nova, I think I showed some stars that don't nova just as a big round ball, but they have a top and a bottom and they blow out different ways. Anyway, Brahma, an earthly king, he now felt that God is in all, is all in all. A wonderful animal has emerged from my essence. Talk about ego. At the first of the smallest size, it was in 1 hour increased to enormous bulk And without doubt, it is a portion of the almighty power. They were engaged in this conversation when that Vara, or boar form, the sun, suddenly uttered a sound like the loudest thunder, and the echo reverberated and shook all quarters of the universe. I don't know if when the sun novas, it creates a noise. It could more likely be the lightning, the electrical discharge from the center of the Earth to the upper atmosphere is going to be probably the source of the noise. That Vera, the sun figure, again made a loud noise and became a dreadful spectacle, shaking the full flowing mane which hung down his neck on both sides. I'll show you a picture of a star that looks like that in a few minutes. Let me go on. Okay, he proudly displayed his two most exceedingly white tusks, then rolling about his wine-colored eyes, red, erecting his tail, he descended from the region of the air and plunged headmost into the water. The whole body of water was convulsed by the motion and began to rise in waves, while the guardian spirit of the sea, being terrified, began to tremble for his domain and cry for mercy. He's seeing this at actually the time of the nova. So he's seeing, in that case, the Indian Ocean convulsing, and the earthquakes, the shaking, and the Indian Ocean going across India. They hadn't gotten to the Pacific Ocean yet when it hit them. It will, or it did. Another Hindu legend tells of the battle between the sun god Rama and the Ravana, a giant demons, at the end of the last age. The body of Ravana is consumed by fire. Sita, the flowering earth, goes through the ordeal of fire and comes out of it purified and redeemed from all taint of the monster Ravana and Rama. And the sun and Sita and the earth are separated for 14 years. This is probably how long it takes, more like about either 11 or 22 years, for the sun to actually create that dust shell around it that we see in as a glowing star. Excuse me. This is one of the pictures I saw of they've taken of a nebula, a star. The star's here. This is the planetary plane across here, but it blew top and bottom. And I think that's what they're describing. Now, each star blows differently and they look differently, and ours may do something like this, but look a little differently. I mean, they had a reason that they used the word boar and elephant and stuff like that, and tusks. The tusks, they could maybe thinking like this. Don't know. It's very possible. Okay, and then the Earth goes dark. They all have the same thing, but it really, that takes you on the mythologies. There's probably no question, I didn't see any mythologies that were as good as these on the other side of the Earth. It's pretty sure some of our descendants saw this thing go off, the star. And okay, so now the physical evidence. You know, mythologies is not scientific proof. It's an indication, it's clues, but it's not the proof. The observation of particle tracks in natural mica. Now, I put the articles here, and this is 1962. Space program, they landed on the moon, what, 68, I think, or 69, and they started bringing items back. And I'm going to show you something that's really interesting about the whole thing when I get done here. Anyway, observation. Electron microscope studies in 59 and 60, that's as early as it goes, have shown that fission fragments from uranium-235, or thorium's 233, produce tracks in mica and other minerals, usually softer minerals. The other minerals are zircons and apatite. There are at least two natural sources of such very heavy particles. Fission fragments from the spontaneous fission of uranium, impurities, and a recoil of nuclei from cosmic ray induced nuclear disintegrations. Now, this is before they landed on the moon, obviously. They got a big surprise. This is what it looks like. As a corollary, if the uranium content can be independently shown to be less than this amount, then any significant track densities which are observed can be ascribed to other sources such as cosmic rays or spontaneous fission. Okay, cosmic ray induced particle tracks in meteorites. This is 82. I'm sorry, 1964. And Nature. Okay. And it was another article, Origin of Tactites, settle at last. But this is a picture of the first one they got from a meteorite that had fission tracks in it. And so this is what they said in 82. Tactites whose small glassy objects limited to a few well-defined regions of the Earth's surface have haunted geologists for more than a century. Like country house ghosts, they have never been part of the investigative mainstream. This is important right here. Fission tracks, and you'll see when I was doing the studying, I've read over 80 journal logs that have to do with fission tracks and cosmic rays, and you'll see the results at the end of this video. But have given rise to a variety of weird and wonderful explanations that attempt to occasional attention of the wider community, particularly when it has seemed that a new technique might throw some light on their nature and origin. They're always trying to make fun of it. Terrestrial volcanism has the obvious first choice, but it too became evident that there were significant chemical differences between tactites and obsidian. I got to give you a little education right now on why the scientists say that the last geomagnetic reversal was 700,000 years ago or 730,000 years ago. You're going to learn something, how things have been manipulated. There are 4 tactite-strewn fields within each of the tactites have the same potassium, argon, and fission track ages. Thus, the North American, European, Ivory Coast, and Australian tactites are about 35, 14, 1.3, and 0.7 million years old. Respectively, these ages represent the time at which the tactites were last molten. Okay, regarding the potassium-argon dating, potassium is number 19, or I think it's an atomic weight of 39, the other one's 38. Just like when I explained in an earlier video in Series 4 on carbon-14 dating, what happens is carbon-14 is created by cosmic rays hitting nitrogen in the upper atmosphere, and it creates carbon-14. The same thing happens with potassium-argon. Potassium in the air or in the ground gets hit by a cosmic ray, and it creates argon 39 or 40. And now, they all go by the theory, accept the theory, that the decay is linear like this over time. Now, this is present, and as time goes on, you have less and less and less. They don't know, because it's not in their textbooks, that when a star novas, it's pouring out like at least 700 times more cosmic rays. So along here, you have a big spike. And I showed this when I was describing carbon-14, a big spike like this. So you'll have more of the radioactive argon, and you'll think that's older. Or, I'm sorry, you'll think it's younger, and it's not really. So that's what throws this thing off, but they don't know that. So in the carbon-14, they say, now, how did they get the 700,000? From the 50s and the 60s, the Navy was mapping the continental continental shelf and the mid-Atlantic ridge that was expanding. Lava comes out and expands. In some places 1 inch per year, some places 2 inches per year. So they would drag a magnetometer, and something would drag it like 2 miles down. In the old days, they weren't that accurate, and tube models and things like that, and coils. And they would go at a certain speed, and they would record the magnetic remnant in the lava on the seafloor. And that's how they did. So the problem is they also had a nasty technique, and I showed it in Series 4, that they would deliberately ignore reversals that were less than 20,000 years. Now, that means you're cherry picking your data to fit a wrong philosophy. So this is what it looks like. This is by NOAA, and they drag the thing across here. This is what it really looks like. Now, these little tiny bumps here are reversals, but they don't accept it unless it's big enough, and they make the assumption that what the distance are between these things also. So these things here, there should be a bunch of lines in here, but no. So they then estimated it's 700,000 years out of the blue. And you'll see this in the following scientific papers I quote and what they wrote down. That's what they've done. This is another picture of it, but they've given color values and color depth and also magnitude to the things. You see there's a lot of stripes in here in one of these. And here's the center island right here, center right here. It expands on both sides. But you can see there's a lot more than what they're saying. But what was funny, if you realize this is 12,068 years, that's 0.7 really. You divide it into this, you got 1.8 or almost 2 cycles. It was just 24,000 years ago. 14 by 7 is 20 cycles ago. And this, 50 cycles ago. And the current geology books, like I said, and geography books claim this or 730,000 years. Seafloor spreading, I explained it. I'm amazed they get away with this, and because there's so much data now, carbon-14 dating of stuff on the land and things that you can, carbon-14 dating of trees underneath magma at the same level, it was a reversal. This idea should have been buried decades ago, but it hasn't been. And I think they're doing it deliberately because it doesn't fit their model, and they don't want people to look at the sun as the cause of this polar reversal. And, well, the sun, that's the cause of the polar reversal. The clock cycle is responsible for both the sun novaing and what goes on in the center of the Earth, basically the geomagnetic reversal. Anyway, let me go on. Moon and earthly fission tracks. Tracks from exact radioactivity and ancient cosmic rays and calibration ions. Nature 73. Now, this is when the stuff was coming back from the moon. To summarize, track lengths are decreased in a manner consistent with a shift of most observed natural cosmic ray tracks in crystals relative to the calibration Fe is iron tracks. They're looking for a heavy atom. If this explanation is tentatively accepted, then the longer tracks observed by this guy et al. Are attributed to that's plutonium-244 and super heavy nuclei could have been explained most directly as normal, unaltered cosmic ray Fe or iron or nickel tracks that have been found since the last shock event that produce shortening tracks. Because they know cosmic rays can do it. 72, Nature. Nature did a better job of reporting this stuff than Journal Science, and you're going to see, I'm going to show you that. In the letter, Fission Tracks Dating of Archaeological Material from Japan, 71. it says, this one's complaining about, this article is complaining about this article that was produced in 71. So he came out and said, you got a mistake in some of your dating. The following author's method of age calculation, the data in table 1 for the glass ball, Hirono, Uji, Koyo prefect, indicates an age of 180,000 years, not 1,480 years. Also, for the glaze on the bowl there, the data indicate an age of 47,000 years, not 400 years. Now this is Kim. This is the guts of fission track dating, and you'll see the error right off the bat. Finally, we would like to emphasize that fission track dating of any material is possible only when cumulative uranium times time is greater than 10. Translation: 10 tracks per square centimeter per 1,000 years. Okay, so now you're going to see when they talk about potassium-argon dating and fission track dating, you'll understand why you have huge numbers. All of a sudden, you have a tremendous number of fission tracks in a crystal or bone or pottery or something like that. And they say, well, gee, there's 10 hits per 1,000 years. Count on how many there are per square centimeter. And how do you like that? This thing's got hundreds of thousands of years old. The Chinese side of the story. Fission track dating is, it is assumed that the crystals were completely annihilated at high temperatures during deposition. So the argument between the fission track dates and the obtained by other techniques also imply the use of fire at the site. The main emphasis of the contribution devoted to the humanoid fossil evidence was their chronomatic dating. That's absolute dating. The collection of fossil humanoid from the locality, they had 14 crania and cranial fragments, 16 mandibles and teeth and bones, stuff like that. I'm going to put, you'll see these notes in here. Cosmic rays are not mentioned in the article. This is 1990. It's like it disappeared. It doesn't exist. Now, I'll read some of the codes here. M means paleomagnetism. Well, what are they all taught? Last geomagnetic reversal was 700,000 years ago. Well, I guess that's what it's got to be. So 500, 600 years, or 1,000 years ago would be, is what they would come up with. Again, the same thing, 750, oh, in 1,000 years. This is 500,000, 750,000. So it's about the same range. Same thing here. It's basically the last reversal, 12,000 years ago. U is, again, where is it? Uranium series. What they're doing is they take either mica or a certain type of glass and they expose it to uranium. And they count how many, and they heat it up, and they count how many fission tracks are in that, and they compare it with their sample, and they come up with an age. And their ages here are less than this, but they're counting. You want to know how many this is? Yes, 200,000. Knock off 3 zeros. 200 times 10 fission tracks per square centimeter. So you have times 10. You have 2,000. You think they counted 2,000 fission tracks on a piece of, what was it? Oh, human fossil bones. That was 1 square centimeter. 2,000. You want to know what killed a lot of people? Now you know. So that's how you do with any of these numbers. You basically, this represents 300,000 years. Do you want to just to take the 300, because you chop off the three zeros, multiply by 10, and that's how many fission tracks they're saying they estimated was in that 1 square centimeter of bone or teeth. It was only, okay, now carbon-14 dating. Gee, look at that. a little greater than 35,000 years ago. Gee, that would have been 3 polar reversals ago. Same thing here, and approaches that. Probably it's the 35,000. Actually, they get a low one here. Remember in Series 4 I showed where you had sedimentation in China where the top part was, current all the way down to about 11,000 years before present. Then you had some that was carbon-14 dated at 7,000 and 6,000. Remember? Well, the reason why is that spike of carbon-14 because of the nova. And so if all of a sudden you have a high quantity of carbon-14, you think, okay, that's younger, it hasn't decayed yet. And that's what happened, that's why they got a lower number here, and a lower number on this test also. Depends on where you grab your sample from. That's the other thing, we really don't know where they grabbed the samples from or how deep it was. Another journal article, 2018, does not mention cosmic rays at all. Now, they've collected 2,284 fission track data from all over China. They were trying to correlate it with their earthquake faults. But you get an idea, they really had a lot of hits. They were looking for it. And so anyway, that's the important part. And they measured apatite crystals, and I don't know if they use zircons, but I'm sure they do have zircons there, but that's what they were finding. But they never look at cosmic rays. They're comparing it, that has to be uranium there, Here's another. It shows you how absurd this whole thing is. This green here, definitely they saw the nova in here. This green would be about 100,000, they think 100 million years ago. That's what this means, 100 million years ago. MAPO of 3, it'll be 100,000 times 10. Are they trying to tell me they counted 1 million fission tracks in a 1 square centimeter of crystal or stone? I don't think it's possible to count that many. I don't think it's possible. Especially 1 centimeter, what would you use to count it with? So I don't believe this stuff. All this tells you is that they got hit with a lot of cosmic rays, which means they were on the sun side. Ignore the age, they have no idea, as I think I explained to you. Unless you know the sun novas and what exposure you get of the cosmic rays from the sun, there's no way that this formula of 10 per 1,000 years makes any sense whatsoever. Mongolia, I love this one. I put this in my book also. Bone fragment, they thought dinosaurs. No. Cosmic rays never mentioned. This was 67, but it did in 63. And here's bone of an animal, and here's your fission tracks all over the place. I don't know if it killed the animal, but who knows. Erosion rates, Taiwan. What they were trying to do is figure out erosion rates on Taiwan, the southern part of Taiwan, by measuring maybe fission tracks. So that didn't really work out so hot. Zircon fission tracks data of this person. And apatite also. And they plotted it, and you clearly see here, this is like 1 million years. Everything's below that. This is what it is. The stuff up here would indicate probably, I can't believe it would be older, but either they had such a high quantity that they put it as older. That's the problem with this kind of aging. If you see a tremendous amount of fission tracks, you're going to think this thing's older than it really is, but it was just either on the surface of the ground. We don't know if the samples were buried in the ground, because cosmic rays don't go deeper than a couple of 100 feet tops. To prove my point, in '61 when they put 10,000 gallons, or was 100,000 gallons of cleaning fluid to try to detect neutrinos, it failed miserably. They put it in a mine in the north central, because it was 10,000 feet down. So they knew no cosmic rays are getting down there. They were trying to avoid cosmic rays. So those theories that think that cosmic rays, when a star novas, is going to somehow disconnect the crust from the mantle. The crust is like from 20 to 40 miles deep. Forget it. They know nothing about cosmic rays and how it works and what their penetration. It's an atomic bullet. It's going to hit other atoms on the way down and eventually stops. Australia, tactites and geomagnetic reversals. I love this. 1967. This is when the stuff was, we're going to go to the moon, but I don't think the stuff came back yet. Microscopic glassy objects which occur in sediment deposits in the Australian area during the and shortly after the last magnetic polar reversal are apparently tactites. The last reversal occurred 700,000 years ago. You'll see this number show up over and over. It's one colossal error you cannot get out of the journals. You can't get it out of their heads. They weren't thinking about what's going on. Potassium argon dates indicate that the Australian tactites were formed 700,000 years ago also, for the same reason. You have a spike of that, of argon, and oh, that's what must have happened. Anyway, tactites were formed and deposited at the same time as the geomagnetic field reversed, and so both phenomena could have a common cause. Yeah, you think so? The 700,000 year date of their formation given by potassium argon and fission track ages show that the tactites could not have originated in their present form outside the Earth-Moon system. They're saying it doesn't come from the Earth at all or Moon. Try the Sun. Deep-sea microtactites of the Australian fall are dispersed through a sediment zone which represents 40,000 to 100,000 years of deposition. The tactite fall was probably instantaneous and so dispersal through a layer of 30 to 60 centimeters. That's about 18 inches to about 40 inches. Think centimeters thick. It has already been suggested that the temporary reduction in the Earth's field attendant with the polarity reversal would affect organic evolution through the increased bombardment of the Earth by cosmic rays. So they're saying one, organic evolution. They're admitting that cosmic rays alter the DNA and create you a new species. They're not saying it out loud, but that's what it is. Now, we hadn't landed on the moon yet in '67. So they're getting there. Microtactites and deep sea sediments. 67. An examination of deep sea sediments deposited south of Australia and Sumatra during and after the last polar reversal of the Earth's magnetic field resulted in the discovery of a zone containing microscopic, less than 1 millimeter, glassy objects. The dating was estimated to be the 700,000 years again. The age of information is based on fission track, dating, and potassium argon. Cosmic rays are not mentioned in the article, this one too. Ivory Coast, microtactites, fission track, ages, and geomagnetic reversals. 71. Microtactites are small glassy, I'm going to go through it again. Ocean adjacent to the Australian and Ivory Coast tactite fields. The Australian microtactites occur within a zone 30 to 50 centimeters thick associated in the time with the last geomagnetic reversal. Remember, they were on the side of the Earth that saw the sun when it nova. And this is from the Ivory Coast. This is a piece of what is it? I think it was just a mica or it was hepatite. And these little black dots are fission tracks. This is their test sample they irradiate with uranium, and all these little holes are fission tracks. This one is also a sample, but it's loaded, but they can't explain it. Most of the kidney-shaped etched pits are of spurious origin, resulting from bad polishing. I doubt that. Polishing shouldn't do that at all. They're trying to give an excuse. Those are fission tracks of heavy elements. This is, again, Australian and Ivory Coast strawn fields. Again, look at the ages. 800,000 years, plus or minus. 700,000 years. 1 million. 700,000. The million one is probably because they counted even more. Remember, it's based on 10 fission tracks for every 1,000 years. So you figure they try to estimate how much it is, and they come up with estimates. You can see these are the difference in the estimates, quite a bit. And there it is. They got clobbered. They also got some of it. That was the surprise. I'm going to go through this thing more. I was taught that, and we thought that when a star novaed, like ours, it would throw off the cosmic rays and would come not at the speed of light, but slower, with maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. Evidently, this thing gives off cosmic rays at different speeds, or you have cosmic rays going at different speeds. And for at least 15 hours, you'll see them even in France. We got clobbered with cosmic rays, but not as many as the sun side. They got the gift. Indonesia. Fission track ages of stone tools and fossils on the east Indonesian island of Flores. 1998. Again, they wound up dating them, again, this period of time, about 900,000 years plus or minus. But again, they just recorded more fission tracks than they thought. Same thing here. This is last polar reversal. Paleomagnetic determination showed that the deposit at Tangi Tiolo are dominated by reverse polarity, but contain two levels with normal polarity. So you got two reversals here. So they're telling you flat out, you've got a huge dose of cosmic rays at the same time as a polar reversal. This is their results in their analysis. Again, it's the same stuff. Fission track ages, look, it's the same thing. You figure 12,000 years ago. This is larger, probably found deeper. It depends. See, it depends on where they found the stuff and how deep it is. Or it may have been stuff, if some of this stuff was actually on the surface and got a huge dose of it, you know. You don't know. You don't know where and how deep the stuff was when they dug it up. This is about one meter here. There's about 1.5 or 2 meters here deep. And this is the samples that they found. Now remember, Indonesia had the Pacific Ocean rushing over it, so you don't know how much was above and below and how it got deposited. Okay, Japan, paleomagnetic polarity in a 930 meter core from there. If the dates are adequate and to a normally magnetized ash layer in the Osaka group, Japan, having a fission track age of 0.1 plus or minus a million years. Probably this is the last polar reversal. They would have a tremendous number of fission tracks on whatever sample they got. Again, cosmic rays not mentioned in the article. India, paleoclimate changes deduced from carbon-13, carbon-12, and carbon-nitrogen ratios, sediment in India. We report here the values of let me go on further. The ratio of the organic fraction of the paleomagnetically and radiometrically dated Pleistocene Kariwa Lake sediments from Kashmir, India. And this is what it is. What's interesting about this is a reversal here, and it has a spike of this carbon-nitrogen ratio. Again here, polar reversal, a big spike. Here, big spike. I don't know what this is all about, but there may have been a break in here and they never recorded it accurately. Same thing for the carbon-13 here. An isotope created at the same time as a reversal. And that was the importance of this article. Decoupling of erosion and precipitation in the Himalayas. Apatite fission track dates from ridge crests, and this is the table. Okay, so elevation, and here's the age, and here's the standard deviation. Again, all pretty low, most likely the last reversal. Apatite fission track dates. Fission track ages and consistently very young, less than 1 million years. In other words, they're trying to figure out the rate of erosion on the Himalayas. And they found them all down in the valley area, and they're putting them at pretty young. It would be, I mean, I don't know how much of the Pacific Ocean was actually washing through the Himalayas. Probably some of it in the valleys, but I don't know. The dates again, this is distant, this is the mean slope, and this is where they found them. France, now we get to Europe and Africa. Thermoluminescence dating of volcanic paleoglasses, 1980. And what you're looking at is all these black dots are fission tracks. That's a lot of fission tracks. Our first results are shown in Table 2 and compared with the ages obtained using more conventional techniques. The agreement of TL dating paleoglass is good and indicates that within our experiment error of 0.8%. Never mentions cosmic rays. And here it is. What's interesting is carbon-14 dating gives you this, but remember what I told you. If it's during the time of the reversal, there's going to be a big quantity of carbon-14, which they will assume is younger than if it was way down, not too much. So here is carbon-14 datings here, conventional, and here's with counting fission tracks in material, obsidian. And you'll see this falls at around the 36,000. This would be 36,000, 3 cycles ago. Here, potassium argon, I don't rely on it at all. It's just too iffy. But you can see there was a relationship with the polar reversals and the cycles. Italy, fission track dating of obsidian of Lapiri Island. Obsidian was widely traded in prehistoric times and is of particular interest to archaeologists and reconstruct the trading patterns. This is what they found in it, though. A lot of fission tracks. Kenya, fission track dating of the Mesolithic knife. They had a Neolithic knife, man-made knife, and they tested it for fission tracks, and they came up with 3,700 plus or minus years old. Later paper in 1978 dated another artifact from the cave at 8,000 plus. If it was in the cave, it's not going to get too many fission tracks. You know, the cave itself hid the knife from exposure from the cosmic rays. Ivory Coast microtactites, fission track, age, and geomagnetic reversals. 71. And again, this is the same article that went with the Australian microtactites. Again, it was found during the geomagnetic reversals. They have different dates of the stuff. Okay, they concentrated in a thin layer about 15 centimeters, about 6 or 7 inches. Cometary hypothesis also avoids the difficulty which have appeared in lunar origin hypothesis of tactites and microtactites now that lunar samples are available. In other words, they don't want to go anywhere near cosmic rays causing it because they have to go to the sun. They don't want to do that. Okay, this is about the end. The reason it took me over a month to do this video is because I have membership for journal Science and Nature. The membership I have for Nature, Science I can go all the way back to day one for them. Nature, I also have one I can go all the way back to day one for Nature. But I went from the 1950s. So when I searched for fission tracks and Nature, you know, this is during the space program. This is landing on the moon. The number of articles go up to 42. Then the stuff coming back from the moon, 81, 78, 75, and then it peters down to next to nothing. This is about, from here down is when the journal Nature becomes more a medical journal, and that's about it. The journal Science was the big disappointment. Nothing in 55 to 59, 61, one article, 2. By now, the stuff was coming back from the moon, 2 articles, 0, 0. Look at this, it's pitiful. This is a sign of controlled information, that we're only allowed to see certain ideas and certain information. The journal Nature was not under the control of the journal Science, and I think the heavy hand of the CIA has something to do with that, both in the funding and their control of the National Science Foundation, as well as journals. Now, when I search for cosmic rays, no problem. Lots of them. Through this period of time, it makes some sense. Then it kind of peters out, no big deal. Now, cosmic rays, a lot of space stuff and things like that, not necessarily our field or what we're trying to study. Journal Science, again, minimized it, not too much. And a lot of this stuff was really the effects on materials and stuff like that. And that's what that is. But you can see the difference, 12 to 352, 53. I mean, that's a huge difference. Okay, so summary of this video. The mythologies of China, Japan, Hawaii, India, tend to show a common history of the last cataclysm in nova. They had the best description because they saw our sun nova 12,068 years ago. 2, the fission tracks were formed by cosmic rays at the time of the nova. The cosmic ray bombardment continued for at least another 15 hours, all the way through to Italy and France. I was surprised about that. This was not a mini nova or micronova. This was a nova. Just figure out how many calories of heat it takes to evaporate 450 feet of ocean water, salt water. And you'll know this is a regular nova. When I figured it out for 350 feet of distilled water, it came out to over 5 billion calories per square foot, every square foot. For this, it would probably be maybe 7 billion calories. You know, only a nova does that. I wouldn't call anything a micronova or a mini nova. You have to call it something else. It's either a solar flare, a large solar flare, or it's something we may not understand, like when a star gives birth to a planet. We don't know what it goes through and what kind of output it does to do this. I mean, to give you a similar situation, go ask your girlfriend or wife or somebody who's given birth what it's like to give birth and how much energy she has to exert to give birth. I think the star's doing the same thing, so you can't really say anything like a mini nova, call it something else. But what's going on during the clock cycle is a nova, period. Fourth, the sciences have been severely damaged by governments promoting and injecting their agenda into the research funding and science journals. Science is in deep trouble. That was being polite. It's not just the US government. I want you to just beat up on them. The people in the CIA and whatever president told the CIA they should handle this thing, even though it's illegal and it's not within their privy and legal definition of their organization, is they were all scared. And I told you earlier in the other videos, when that sun erupted during the last Gleisberg cycle, they didn't expect that. And they were really wondering what was the energy source of our sun. And they were all scared. And I showed you the letter from Ken Kuzmin. And it's pretty obviously they're scared. And some people have asked me, how come they leave me alone? And they never tried censoring me or any threats against me, nothing like that. I think it's because some in the agency, in fact, Ben Davidson's the one who told me that he thought that the agency, the CIA, some people within the agency wanted this information out and wanted us specifically to get together. And he's probably right. And besides, I know more than they do, and I think they know it. And the next one is going to tell everybody what everybody wants to know is what side of the earth is going to be facing it. But you understand why I did this. I have to first prove to you that the sun did nova roughly on the 128th east parallel, roughly over Japan, in that area. I don't want anyone to forget this stuff. We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. William Casey, the director of the CIA at the time of the Reagan administration, and I didn't do the picture and make this thing, but he's 100% right. It has to sink into every person's head, including, and most importantly, the scientists who watch this, if you dare watch it. The other one is George Herbert Walker Bush, Mr. New World Order himself. This is a quote, and I heard her in an interview say this, so I know it's true. Sarah, if the American people ever find out what we have done, they would chase us down the street and lynch us. Guess what they're hiding? You only get one guess. Dihole Foundation is a 501c3. Tax deductible. At the end of the year or January, I send off notices of how much money you've donated to the foundation and a federal ID number so you can deduct it from your tax returns. And if you want to donate, you send it to research@dieholefoundation.com through PayPal. If you want to get on our mailing, so when I put these out, which I'm going to do today after I compile it and get it up on YouTube, send an email to info@dieholefoundation.com and I'll put you on the mailing list so you know it. At some point, I think I'd like to also have people send me, if they've had dreams of this disaster when they were younger. I've had a couple of people contact me, and I've had a couple, and I'd like to read some of them and see if there's a pattern to this thing. One person, a girl that lives here in Florida, I won't say who her name is, she told me one, and one thing she said stuck out. It was actually pretty important. Anyway, I thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Maybe you're scared stiff, but wait and be scared till the next video.